Good afternoon and a very warm welcome to Camelot Castle. This, of course, is one of the remaining and one of the very, very few remaining free speech platforms or media platforms in the world. Most people are being censored at the moment, and the level of censorship is unbelievable. We ourselves have been censored on several platforms, and so what I'm going to ask you to do is, the first thing before we get into anything, please share this broadcast, but also subscribe. Now, this afternoon we are here to discuss something, and it's really the reason that we bought Camelot Castle in the first place. It's the reason we do the research that we do. It's the reason we helped President Trump and supported his presidency. And there is one thing that we hate more than anything else here at Camelot, and that is unnecessary war. Unnecessary war. And of course, late last night, I was disturbed, as I'm sure many of you are disturbed, that President Biden has ordered what seems to be a completely unnecessary military strike on Syria. And of course, many people will have lost their lives and will lose their lives as a result of what seems to be a completely unnecessary thing. Now, a lot of you ask me, and it's very hard for some of you, I know, to understand, why is it that some of the most peculiar articles get written about Camelot Castle. And what I always try to explain to people is, but it takes some understanding, is there's a number that you do need to appreciate, and it's an amount of money, and it is $1.6 trillion a year. Now, what is that number? What is that number of $1.6 trillion a year? $1.6 trillion a year is the amount of money that the military-industrial complex spends every year, year in, year out, on weapons and military ordnance, and in, if you like, the game of war. War is a huge, huge business. And of course, the analogy that I like to give people so that they can understand this and get this into their heads is, if you owned a fireworks company, let's say in the United Kingdom, and you were producing fireworks, and your fireworks got used from time to time, and somebody came along and cancelled November the 5th and New Year's Eve. And what they said is, this November the 5th and this New Year's Eve, there are going to be no fireworks whatsoever in England. And hi Marina, nice of you to join us. Do let us know where you're watching from around the world. But let's say you own this fireworks company, and somebody cancelled November the 5th and New Year's Eve. Well, then that would probably represent about 70% of your revenue for that year, because of course New Year's Eve and November the 5th, bonfire night, is when people in this country use their fireworks up. So if somebody comes along and cancels those, well, now what I would like you to take a look at is, let's say you are the military-industrial complex and you're expecting to spend $1.6 trillion a year on weaponry. Well, somebody comes along and cancels a war. Somebody comes along and basically you thought you were going to have a war in Venezuela, but you ended up not having a war in Venezuela. You thought you were going to have a war in Syria, but you ended up not having a war in Syria. Well, of course, if you are expecting, if your job is to make missiles, and if your job is to manufacture Kalashnikovs, or your job is to manufacture, which is a type of a machine gun, and if your job was to manufacture drones, then of course, as crazy it may sound, the cancelling of war and the cancelling of day-to-day war operations on this planet is bad news for your profit model, because your profit model, your profit model depends on continuing wars. And if you have a production line, let's say, of tanks or of, now I've got a hot chocolate here, a Camelot Castle hot chocolate, which I've snuck into the proceedings. Absolutely delicious. And when we're open, do pop along and try the hot chocolates here. They are absolutely delicious. But going back to what I was saying on this more serious subject of war, this is something that the deep state and those that are organizing wars don't like, is the cancelling of their wars. Why? Because it costs them money in the same way as cancelling New Year's Eve. And November the 5th is good business for the fireworks companies. There is somebody in the world, now you and I, I'm sure, are horrified and saddened by the fact that civilians will probably lose their lives as a result of the bombing operation that has occurred in Syria last night. I'm sure we are saddened by this, but trust me, there is somebody, possibly in an office in Washington, who is rubbing their hands in delight because they have just increased the profit that they're going to make, because of course all of those drones and those bombs, of course, they will all be replaced, and new orders will now start to be processed through. Now, I said to you that one of the reasons that President Trump was being removed from power as president in the United States by the deep state was because he is the first president in many, 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 many years that took America into no new wars and actually ended wars. He ended the war with ISIS, and he did peace deals all over the Middle East. And had he been in power today, he would not now be engaging in more wars. And of course, it was a great, great frustration to the military-industrial complex, to the lobbyists in America, that he refused. In fact, he used to take the piss out of Bolton. There's one story that I was told by an insider in Washington that Bolton was in the cabinet office one day, and Varadkar, who is the Irish Prime Minister, came into the Oval Office, and Trump, really taking the piss out of Bolton, who is a complete militarist, turns around to Varadkar and turns around to Bolton and says, Ireland, isn't that one of the countries that you were intending to nuke, John Bolton? And of course, completely taking the piss, because John Bolton was constantly encouraging President Trump to up the level of military engagement. So I did warn many, many people. I said, listen, 2020, we are going to witness things in 2020 that specifically have the purpose of removing Trump. So all of you out there that have been buying into all of the COVID propaganda, all of the virus propaganda, all of the vaccine propaganda, realize that the net result of all of this has really been just to remove dissenters from positions of power and to get back to business as usual for the war machine. And, about, I would say, well, you'd have to work out an exact percentage, but a significant percentage of the money that you're paying in tax is going towards the war machine. And for me, what was always exciting, the reason that we supported Trump in the first place, was, you see, Sue Linda says, what an evil system, war required for profit, stunning in reality. I think today it's just so beautifully illustrated. And go onto Twitter and take a look, because in a funny sort of way, people are now realizing, even Democrats are realizing, what the hell have they voted for? Biden, during his campaign, said that he would never do unnecessary airstrikes. Really, Sue Linda says, yes, President Trump taught how to do well in the economy without war. That's exactly what he was doing. So I just wanted to point this out and to say that we really need to up our personal communication. And one of the things I'm most proud of here was at Camelot Castle. Actually, it was in a just after the Twin Towers had been struck. Is we actually helped to catalyze the Stop the War movement, and we lit a beacon here at Camelot, and over 800 people turned up, and that then turned into the largest anti-war march in the history of the world. And I was very proud to be invited to speak at Westminster, in Westminster Hall there with Anthony Wedgwood Benn, and a tremendous number of people could see, even then, that the invasion of Afghanistan was absolutely and utterly inappropriate, and is really just an opportunity. Now, so far, trillions and trillions of dollars have been wasted in the Middle East, and of course, there are individuals, there are families, there are bankers who are profiting from wars. Now, what do I know? I am just a humble hotel owner. In fact, I wouldn't even say I'm a very good hotelier. We have pretty good cream teas, we have pretty good treacle tarts, we have pretty good crumpet here. As many of you know, a lot of people come to Tintagel for the Camelot Castle crumpet. But I have lived, and I am fortunate to have gotten to know many people in positions of power, and what I have witnessed is that most of politics really boils down to a covert creation of war for a tiny, tiny number of people that profit, and the misery that is created. I mean, imagine how you would feel if your next door neighbor, if their house had a, if their house, I'm just doing a live broadcast, darling. Okay. Yeah. I have an urgent summons from my dear wife, and of course, as you all know, I'm completely controlled by my dear wife. So I'm going to end. We're all controlled by somebody. We're all controlled by somebody, and I happen to be controlled by my dear wife. So I'm going to go and tend to her every need. But I just wanted you to take a look at that and understand what is going on. Everything that you have witnessed in relation to the election has been all about removing a peacemaking president and putting somebody back in power in the White House that is going to take America into foreign wars again. And last night it began. So for those of you that voted for Biden out there, you have blood on your hands. For those of you who supported Trump, you were very right to have done so. And for those of you out there that are attacking me for communicating and expressing the idea of free speech, realize that all you're really doing is supporting the military-industrial complex. You are supporting the war makers. And just take a look into it. You can look into the figures for yourself. The military spend on this planet is 1.6 trillion a year. That pays for an awful lot of negative articles and so on and so forth about people who are basically just trying to do the right thing. All we're trying to do at Camelot Castle is give you information so that you can look at it for yourselves and open it up. The table was round for a reason, as they say here at Camelot. But there we go. And I will speak to you very soon. All the very best.